Hello, and welcome to Local Writers Read for our June event on the theme of Adornment and Disguise. I'm Josh Gauthier, and I'm here with my co-organizer, Claire Guyton, and our two guests, Annaliese and Jodi, as well, who I will introduce in just a moment. But thank you if you are tuning in either for the first time today or if you were listening along last night for part one. If you missed part one, it's still up on Facebook and it will be up on YouTube as well by the end of the week or by the end of the weekend. So definitely be sure to go check that out as well. But we are happy to be here. For those who are maybe new to the series, Local Writers Read is a literary reading series based in Lewiston, Auburn, Maine. And we spotlight readers across genres and forms and career levels from all over the state just to bring together a literary community. In normal times, we partner with Quiet City Books in Lewiston as our kind of home base and support. Courtney there does a lot for the arts in Central Maine as well. And we are still in spirit working with Quiet City Books, even though our format has changed a little bit these past couple of years. But we're excited to be here. We are also co-sponsored by the Lewiston Public Library. And it's really great for Claire and I both and all of our guests to be able to connect with the local literary community here in Maine. There's so many talented people. And it's been just a lot of fun to be able to share the work month after month. And we're into our fourth season now of doing this, which is just so much fun. So our theme, as I said, for today is Adornment and Disguise, which we invite all of our readers to interpret as broadly as they feel like. Adornments can be decorations, they can dress things up. Disguises can be protective, can be deceptive. There are so many different ways to take these two elements. And we had some really interesting diversity with our readings last night. And we've got some more lined up for today with these excellent women who will be sharing with us. So without further ado, I will introduce and then we will move right into our readings from there. So up first, we have Claire Guyton, who is the co-organizer and co-founder of Local Writers Read. So for anyone who's been around, you're familiar with Claire and I running all of these. But in addition to that, Claire has been a Maine Arts Commission Literary Fellow and a finalist for the Maine Literary Award, and her work has been selected for the Best Small Fictions Anthology and nominated for a Pushcart. Her short fiction appears in Crazy Horse, Mid-American Review, Vestal Review, River Styx, Sliver of Stone magazine, and many other journals, as well as in the Maine anthology Summer Stories. She's currently working on a linked story collection and a novel set in 1890s Maine. Up next, we'll have Jodi Paloni, who is the author of the linked story collection They Could Live With Themselves, which was the runner-up for the Press 53 Award for Short Fiction, an independent publisher's silver medalist, and a finalist for the Maine Book Award in Fiction. She's the founder of Maine Coast Writers Retreats and leads generative writing salons in the Gateless Writing Method online and in person at her home in Mid-Coast, Maine, where she is also hard at work on her next story collection. And finally, we'll have Annaliese Jakimides, who has been a finalist for the Maine Literary Awards in nonfiction and poetry in multiple years. Her nonfiction, short fiction, and poetry have appeared in Solstice, the Southeast Review, Utne Reader, GQ, and other magazines and journals, as well as in anthologies such as This, I Believe, 2 More Personal Philosophies of Remarkable Men and Women. And most recently, Wait, Poems from the Pandemic. Nominated for the Pushcart Prize, her essays have also been broadcast on Maine Public and NPR. After 27 years living off the land on a dirt road in northern Maine, she now lives in downtown Bangor. So those are our readers today. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. And without further ado, I will hand things over to Claire to start us off.
Thank you, Josh. And I'll add my welcome to everyone to Adornment and Disguise Part 2. I am so excited to be reading with these two lovely ladies who are such good friends of the series. They are so talented. and very different voices. So once again, we'll have a nice range of material for you all today. I'm really happy about it. I'm going to be reading a flash fiction that was just published online by Maryland Literary Review. So we will think of that as the warm up to the main event. And I will get started here. This piece is called On Guard. Sergei's scar started just below his hairline, over the left eyebrow, and cut across his face on an almost perfect diagonal, slashing his nose and barely missing his mouth. It was so deep, it looked at first as though it wasn't a scar at all, but a fissure, as though finally the work of being Sergei was too much and his face had split from the pressure. It is. It is splitting from the pressure. He puts a hand on the back of his head and the other hand on his chin. He pushes hard with both. When is it safe to let go? A sword fight, he had told his classmates, inventing a lurking, then towering stranger, a man dressed all in black, wearing a cape and a mask, like a dog, like a bulldog, and he was taller than the oak tree in their front yard. The man threatened his mother, and so Sergei took a stand. On guard, on guard. A flash of metal across the face, his mother screaming bloody terror, then a rally and a charge. On guard, on guard, on guard. And like that, the man in black was gone. When it's cold, the scar aches a dull pulse like a tender bone, narrow and too thin. When it's hot, as it is today, his sweat gathers in the engraved line and his face is sliced by a streak of silver, like the blade that divided the flesh had sunk deep into his face to stay, not too deep to catch the light. On guard! In grade school, the scar had made him interesting. Olivia Denton, pink-faced, eyes like wet caramel apples, lying next to him at nap time, silent, watching, then reaching over to trace her finger along it, back and forth, back again. He held his breath, didn't blink, focused all his attention on being absolutely still, back and forth, her touch light as an eyelash, but hot as a lit match. In middle school, the scar had made him an object of pity, and for a short time, a target for bullies. A very short time, because Sergei had never been confused about what to do about bullies, only outnumbered at first by too many. That first couple of times, he had played it safe. The third time, he would have been ready for twice their number. No need for sword play, just a well-placed steel-toed boot to a knee made, apparently, of porcelain. A sharp elbow aimed square at the nose so there was plenty of memorable blood. And just like that, nobody messed with Sergei. If you are pitied and then feared, you develop a certain kind of aloofness that once you grow stubble, once a soft scowl no longer looks petulant but serious, once you find yourself a head taller than your peers and with shoulders the width of a Mack truck, is mistaken for dignity. The scar, overlaid with all that fake dignity, was the only reason, he was pretty sure, he ever got laid in college. After, he would take her index finger, brush it along the scar, light, light, lighter. When he's exhausted, like today, the scar pulls tight on his skin, pulls at his brow and his nose, at his jaw, so tight the whole damn thing itches like a bitch. But if he dares to scratch, he will sever the thin threads holding it all together. Cannot scratch. You must not scratch. He winds his left fingers into his hair, pushing on the back of his head at the same time that he pulls the hair hard to distract from the itch. He pushes harder still on his chin with his right hand, pushes until his jaw aches, his teeth feel loose, pushes. In his 20s, the scar had made him a badass, the guy you stepped aside to avoid, the one you never approached at the bar. He dressed the scar with a leather jacket and those trusty steel-toed boots, with long waves of black hair cut shaggy against his face. His whole persona said, "You don't get a scar like this if you're a cautious man." His body said, "When? When can I let go?" He has no memory of a self without the scar, and today he wants one. If he can remember, if he can find some fragment of himself that has nothing to do with this scar, his face, he thinks, will be satisfied with the revelation. His face will stop this relentless pulling apart at the seam, this cleaving down to the center of himself, just so desperate to know. There have been moments, brief, when he forgot himself as a scarred thing, when he was not a hunk of something marred by an unhappy accident, but harnessed power. In those moments, he was the source of the hand working out an arithmetic equation, the trained eye catching the right light with the camera lens. For an instant, he was a creative force, his body a flawless humming engine designed to make perfect things. And the degree to which he was of any value was measured entirely by whether he successfully made these things. But no, what he remembers, too, remembers better, is that each instant of forgetting is ruined because he would in the next instant be jolted out of the purity of making something and again, as always, know himself as disfigured by a scar that looks like someone took a hatchet to his face. And then those moments are no longer about the simple perfection of an arithmetic equation or the way the morning sun of deep winter glazes the sky over a frozen river, no longer about the color and scent of inspiration. They were about that shock of recognition. Like everything else, they were about the scar. When is it safe? Thank you for listening. Jodi, you are up whenever you are ready.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Claire. That was such a great reading. You always read so well. And thank you, Josh and Claire, for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here and to also be reading with Claire and Annaliese. And thanks to everybody who's tuning in. I'm going to be reading the opening pages of a short story that appears in the new anthology, North by Northeast, the new short fiction by Maine writers, published by Literal Books. The story's called An End to It. It's late, a heavy fog, and I'm too tired an old woman to be out driving on this kind of night, trying to dodge the horny little frogs hopping across the road. At this rate, a quick 15-minute trip down the peninsula will take a year. I don't have a year. I have months if I'm lucky, meaning Squirrely has months, maybe weeks, when he's the kind of guy who wants to live forever. He's only 56, kid brother by 14 years, and he isn't a bad guy either. But lung cancer doesn't pick and choose based on a person's good deeds. It should have been me that got the cancer, all my smoking all those years. I'd have taken it for him if I could. My luck, I'll live on and on, become one of those cricked women with a toothless grin, a centenarian. One day they'll take a picture of me in a home sitting in front of a pineapple upside down cake. They'll splash it on the front page of the paper. Wouldn't Squirrely love to live to see that? But he's pretty much out of it most of the time now. I drive down to his place once a week just to look at him. I switch on the fog lights. I know this stretch of road like I know my name. I'm behind the wheel of my friend Glory's fancy pants Volvo wagon, so I can't smoke, but I might as well try and enjoy the ride. Butter soft leather under my bony butt, a couple boxes of Girl Scout cookies on the passenger seat. I bought Thin Mints for the mouse of a girl who takes care of Squirrely, and shortbreads to give my hubby when I go back home tomorrow night. There aren't any frogs on this stretch of road. I can relax half a second. I reach for the shortbreads. Axel will forgive his old lady a cookie or two. When I try to rip the box with one hand, I swerve. I swerve again while trying to right the car. Then I get back on track, but I'm all shook up. The red lights come out of nowhere, flashing behind me, followed by the whoop whoop of a sheriff's siren. Way down here, no one in sight, and I get pulled over. I'll bet some of my better teeth on which sheriff it is. Let's see. Weeknight, graveyard shift, Pete Wheeler. Damn if I'm right. I fumble for the lever to buzz the window down. Pete shines his flashlight on the steering wheel, but he's looking right at my face. License and registration, ma'am? Ha ha. His eyes are stone cold blank, humorless. He knows I lost my license a couple years back, the night I ran into the side of the Stop and Shop. Check the glove box for the registration, Vera. I'm only driving this one time. It's an exception to see Squirrely. I'm lying like a sack of potatoes. Just get the card. His tone is steady as she goes. He's bad, Pete. You should know. He's dying. I'm white knuckling the steering wheel to keep myself steady. You hear about him? Pete Wheeler is my husband Axel's older brother by 11 months and 8 days, and he's still pissed, 52 years later, that I wouldn't stick my hand down his shorts on his 18th birthday party when we were naked in the woods behind our houses. I'd been a late bloomer raised by an overprotective aunt. To get back at Pete for getting mad, I took up with Axel the next day. We gave ourselves some sweet time to learn how to love each other, Axel and me. We gave ourselves a lifetime. Pete leans in so close now, I could have bit the knob off his big veiny nose. He sniffs the air. You been drinking? I don't answer. He shines the flashlight into the seat beside me, swings it to peer into the back, and sees nothing because there's nothing back there to see. All I have on me is an oversized pocketbook. Inside is a change purse carrying a couple of crumpled bills. If he wants to check my bag, he'll find my nightie and a toothbrush and some cigs. I have the cookies on the seat. It would please Pete Wheeler, peachy pink, to nab me for drunk driving. He and I had been harboring a lifelong antagonism about the sex we never had, and then the sex we did. But I'm clean. I set my forehead down against the steering wheel. It's the only way I can avoid looking at Pete, him seeing I'm clean. The pleasure of letting him think he's got me is well worth the chill I get from the damp March air crawling down the back of my neck. Okay, step out of the car, Pete says, leaning back on his heels. I know I should step out. I should go through the paces, Pete's ABC bullshit, appease him, then prove him wrong, and he'll probably let me go for driving without a license. But God damn it, Squirrely's dying, and Pete knows it, and now I'm pissed. I lean my head out the window and let loose a hocker on Pete's big old black boots. I throw the car and drive and take off down the road to Early Harbor, dashing this way and that to avoid the frogs, those poor little bastards out looking for romance the first rainy night of spring. Squirrely would have loved to watch me dodging all those little peepers, saving their sorry little sex-crazed lives. Pete knows where to find me. He'll soon arrive with a backup sheriff, probably Jem Boyd, another puffed up cock I've known since we were kids. I'm ahead of Pete far enough to get to Squirrely's place, run into the trailer and lock the tin can front door. I pull the curtains shut. I hope not to terrify the hired girl, Marina. We pay her $10 an hour in cash to sit with Squirrely when she can, drop morphine under his tongue when he asks or looks like he needs it. We suspect she takes some of the drops too. She's sound asleep whenever I show up. But what else am I supposed to do? It's tough to find people you can count on. I learned a long time ago that I can't save the world, can't even save an inch of it. Marina's curled on the couch like a question mark, a book tented on her hip, and she isn't budging. To my relief, though, she's snoring. To Kill a Mockingbird, paperback and tattered, is Squirrely's favorite book from high school. He's such a romantic. He kept that old book because some pretty girl gave it to him, said Squirrely reminded her of Boo. He thought it was a compliment, and well, maybe it was. The girl who gave Squirrely that book was the first in the line of pretty girls who were never going to love Squirrely back. Poor thing set his sights too high. Maybe Marina was reading the book to him earlier. She might have tried to feed him something too. The place smells like tomato soup and burnt toast, but Squirrel doesn't eat much, so maybe she was just sitting here eating him out of house and home. I take the book from Marina's hip and set it on the coffee table. She doesn't budge, but her thin shoulders are lifting up and sinking down. She's breathing. Axel and I lost a daughter about her age, and at the same time, her little girl, too. Her name was Destiny. Seems Axel and I keep losing the people we love. I pull one of Mother's crocheted blankets over Marina's skinny butt, and the fist in my chest just sits there as if it's poised to let loose a punch, crack everything open. I gotta keep moving. In Squirrely's room, a little blue ceramic lamp on his bedside table is still on. I bought him the lamp for $1 at the yard sale for his 40th birthday. And Squirrely loves that lamp. He'd go on and on about it as if it were the only thing anyone ever gave him. Also on his bedside table is a glass of water, the bottle of morphine drops, and a dirty bracelet woven out of pink string, probably Marina's. And next to all this lies my baby brother. He's wearing his flannel Christmas pajamas, even though it's March. He's lying on his back like a side of beef in the middle of the bed he used to share with his wife. I never did like Sheila. She took off soon after we got the cancer news. Squirrely couldn't catch a break if you threw him a slow one. He's been stuck in this place since he was a kid, looking after Mother until she died because, hell, I was in no shape to do it. Eventually, Axel took him under his wing and Squirrely become like a son to him, but now Axel can't bear to see him like this, so I come down here alone. I lean to kiss my little brother's doughy forehead, and my lips feel the cold as soon as they touch his skin. A person knows right away when her little brother is dead. I don't have to call 911. I hear sirens, another whoop whoop, red lights flash in the yard, Pete Wheeler and his backup. Poor Pete. He comes all the way down here to get me and he has no idea what he'll find. Open up, Vera. Well, at least he doesn't pound his fist on the tuna can lid of a door. At least he has that much respect for Squirrely, just not enough to leave us alone. Hold your horses. I step out into the night. After the warmth of the trailer, it's friggin' cold out here. A half moon hangs over a cluster of stringy spruce trees. The sound of a few peepers in the woods cheers me up. They survived the winter and the roads. Curly would have loved all that singing tonight. Deputy Jem Boy's puffing on a cig, scratching his back on the edge of his cruiser door. Pete and Jem, all day, all night, since high school, couple of tough guys. What do you want? I cross my arms over my bony ass chest and spit on the ground to remind Pete what I'm made of. I'm gonna have to put you on the breathalyzer, V, and you know it. Oh, is that right? Well, go right ahead. But first you might want to put it on Squirrely. Make sure he's breathing, because guess what? He isn't. And if you hadn't stopped me up the road, I might have been here in time to say goodbye. I can't help myself. Then I break down. Pete looks a lot like Axel in the moonlight, and I need a wheeler to hold me up right now. I kneel in the yard in a patch of soggy grass where the ice melted in the sunshine earlier in the day, water soaking my jean skirt and wool tights. Pete picks me up as if I'm still a stick of a girl. He wraps his arms around me, and I shake. He doesn't feel like Axel, but he reminds me of the time when we were a couple of kids making out against a tree, and like he did later when I was down at my lowest and he was around. So I pretend. I know how to pretend. Later, I'm still pretending when I lean back into Pete's chest. I'm wearing a pair of Squirrely's pants tied up with a length of clothesline Pete found under the kitchen sink. He's all kindness now. rubbing his hands up and down my arm, shushing me in my ear. And I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Thank you. Next up is Annaliese.
Sorry for the lack of unmuting. I just want to say thank you to Claire and Josh to start with for just, first of all, for this series, for the vision, and for inviting my words and me to be part of today. This essay was written during the height of isolation. So it's called Shelter and the Caddisfly. A friend tells me she is writing regularly, I'm sure she means every day, about the state of our world. There is much to choose from: the pandemic, the climate crisis, environmental injustice, racism, old, ongoing, recurring, unresolved, and now the smaller and smaller boxes into which we are parsing our differences. The everyday thing means that there's little opportunity for my friend's mind, her heart, her spirit, to be freed from the weight of these times, although she wouldn't say that was so. For me, it would be, and almost has been, even without the conscious focusing and listening and attending to everything that she and so many others do. I am a light seer, always witnessing the glass as more than half full, no matter the murky inkiness of the darkness, the struggle, the losses. It's how I'm made. Month 1 and month 2, month 3 pass with me alone in my apartment in a small Maine city. My partner died 18 months before the isolation, my dancing partner 8 months later. I would say each left before their time, but who knows what our times are? The palpable ticking of our clocks, pulsing through the folds of our bodies, tunneling on. I miss him. I miss her. I miss them. I miss the touch of skin, the heat of a hand in mine. I know we adjust. I have come through late night silence loss many times over many years. Friends, parents, sibling, child. But never totally alone, with the blackbirds screeching and hovering and swooping overhead beyond the window glass. Each day I walk through the downtown streets, Harlow to Central to Maine. I walk by the river and sometimes up into Little City or the tree streets, the hollows and furrows. Stephen and Tabitha King are not here, but I walk by their West Broadway home with a new chainsaw sculpture in the front yard. I linger by the wrought iron fence. It's lovely and wild, fence and sculpture. I'm getting by through seeing the good and the light, the openings. But month 4 and 5, now 6 into 7, 8 are harder. I watch people come out more, not care, dangle masks, if any, from their chins. The radio blares repetitiously depressing and distressing stories. I notice newscasters, yes, NPR newscasters, suddenly so enamored of their own voices, that odd lifting at the end of a sentence. It's not a question, people, I say right out loud. And interviewers pushing for something salacious or teary, condemning, nasty. My first 6-word story comes from this time. Surviving POTUS 45. Swallow stories, no shit, regurgitate truth. Followed by The Massacre. Limbs splinter, nymphs anguish, souls disperse. I know I cannot write any more of these stories. Well, I could, but I can't. They are poison. Even 6 words could be enough to burn me up right now, and I know it does no good in the end. I have to find another way in. Words are fire. I don't want to read. I don't want to write. Today I am driving. Driving is what attending a live concert used to be, delicious and opening. I am driving through Searsport by a huge junk-type yard sale on Route 1. There's no sign of life, but I stop and am wandering around. I wonder how they keep people out, keep them from hurting themselves in the dark or the light. Today is sunny and mild. Can I help you? A voice says. I turn. Looking for old lads, I tell this man who is clearly in charge. I hadn't known I was until that moment. He says he's not open, but remembers me, so feel free. Me? I have only stopped here once years ago. He ferrets around, knows exactly where long lamps and short laughs, the raw and the painted are. When I comment on this finding of his, he says lightly, well, for 27 years, I've been the only one putting them where they are. I think, but don't say. I'm the only one in my world putting things places too, but often I have no idea where that place is, and I have nothing remotely resembling this chaos. He and I load the labs, peeling green paint, a stumble of lengths, some broken with ragged edges, splintered spines, plus a rusted horseshoe, 3 cylindrical metal things with different kinds of punctured holes, openings, rust too. He waves and calls out, be sure to come back, which feels genuine. I'm in need of genuine. This world beyond my immediates, my personal attachments and awarenesses feels so disingenuous, entitlement, dishonesty, the fake battling the fake, real, a slippery kind of word. I drive home building a shelter of labs in my head, not literally, but figuratively. I am making a story not of words, too inflammatory, but of materials, paint and nails, some wire and raw wool, images, shapes, a constellation of possibility. 2 days later, I drive 100 miles to the art supply store. I have a list of things I think I need to transform the labs into their story. Likely, it is just a reason I give myself to drive again. In these days, driving restores a sense of sanity, although once I'm in the store, I'm sure I look like a crazy woman. Stock is low, and so I grab 3 of this, 5 of that, 6 and 2 and 10, and then 1 large board and another. I am working and seeing bigger than ever before. I have just learned that my studio, my making space, is going away. Likely my apartment too. A sensible brain would say, wait, stop, not so much. You have no idea where you will put everything, where you will go. But by the time I am at the checkout, I have many cradle boards of varied sizes, good gesso. Last time I bought bad gesso, thin and milky, useless. Hanso yellow and quinacridone red and ultramarine blue, a bucket of titanium white, 3 packages of a cloth made of copper. I have no idea what to do with it. Here's what I finally know about making. I don't need to know what I'm going to do with anything. If I'm open, listening, not fractured in my literal analytical mind, which is very strong and often struggling, I'll make my way in. So the strange copper fiber will lead me somewhere. The masked clerk ringing up my goods says, I love your earrings. They remind me of the, I hear something like shfla. Fingering my ear, poking the mask's elastic band to see which earrings I'm wearing, I try to register the sounds her tongue has formed and mate them with something I know. I don't come up with anything recognizable, no matter, for she has already moved on to describing an insect that makes a cocoon-like casing with jewels and chips of gold. Gold? Jewels? Insect? She pulls up images on her phone and holds up the large screen for me to see 6 feet away. They're brilliant and dazzling and unnatural, yet apparently constructed in their natural way by their natural selves. She spells out the name, Caddisfly, caddisfly. We load my Hyundai like a pickup truck, packing and angling, using every opening and hole, the nooks and vents. Through the miles driving home, I am processing the image of what looked like a cocoon of luminescent jewel light. Decades and decades of jewels and jewelry, most of it seriously unprecious, live with me. All of it, my life told in jewelry, the when and where, the who. I wear jewelry when I shop or sit by a river, write, slap paint, knit wire. It's like putting on underpants. At home, sitting at my computer screen, where everything happens these days, I learned there are 14,500 species of caddisflies. An interest in flies or larvae would never be something anyone I know would attribute to me in terms of words or conversations or images. Ha, a surprise. I need surprises these days. Nothing to do with heartbreak and loss, destruction and suffering, ignorance. See where I go? Caddisflies start off as water livers and grow up to be land dwellers. If I were a scientist, I might describe the former as aquatic and the latter terrestrial, but I'm not. I'm a woman who spent every day of her childhood in a working class neighborhood of a big city, thinking chicken came on a styrofoam plate, dates in a plastic bag. Ended up on 40 acres on a rural road in a small town, learning about land and sky, food and life, and how to grow almost everything we ate, and now lives in a downtown apartment in a small city. Each move has been momentous and long-lasting. One of the two main caddisfly suborders in its larva time builds a portable casing held together by its own silky thread, so it will have a house, a protective shield as it moves around, dragging its home along as it searches for food. The other suborder builds a similar thing, but it's stationary, hopeful and trusting souls that they are, or so I choose to see them, waiting for the food to come to them, and it does. I am made, it seems, a bit like subgroup 2, Annalapalpia. I put down roots. But I may need a new house soon, a protection from the elements, a safe place, not by choice. The ground underfoot is now a bit wobbly, more than a bit, if I'm honest. I may have to shift subgroups, become the one toting its tube of goods around, on the lookout for sustenance. No more stationary, no more waiting for everything to come to me, no more. A caddisfly larva builds its home from basic materials like grains of sand, fragments of rock, bark, sticks, leaves, seeds, and mollusk shells, neatly arranged and stuck onto the outer surface of its silken tube. As it grows, it adds more stuff at the front, and the larva can turn around in the tube and trim the rear end so that it doesn't drag. The nature of the materials and design depend on the larva's genetic makeup. This means that caddisfly larvae can be recognized by their cases down to family and even genus level. After hatching from an egg, the larva moves through 5 instars, building a new, larger tube at each stage. It pupates inside the last one and emerges as a winged adult with hairy, membranous wings. The shimmery things on the clerk's phone are a French artist's construct, deception and manipulation everywhere. He tricks the larvae into trading their normal materials for his, flakes of gold, pearls, diamonds, rubies, all manner of precious and semi-precious stones. The artist scoops the encased larvae from their natural habitats, rivers, lakes, ponds, streams, vernal pools, and takes them home. Once he steals their little houses, he puts them into aquariums filled only with his glitzy choices, which they then seize upon, intent on rebuilding, making do with what's at hand. I cannot imagine this. The theft, the precision necessary to guarantee survival. I will not think about the potential larvae death toll. Is there suffering? Of course there is. Beauty or growth, for that matter, does not always have to be a byproduct of suffering or destruction, but much of it is. Just think of diamond mines or gold mines, people in the dangerous dark in need of money to survive. You could also think back alleys, Bushwick, Appalachia, my old neighborhood in Boston, the unemployed, the homeless, anywhere, yesterday, today, tomorrow. I don't know whether the artist waits for the larvae to live out their cycle to adulthood, but I would think not. What would he have to gain? The larvae feed. The adults, nocturnal flyers who live only about 2 weeks, usually do not. Larvae lifespan is a year or more. Like mayflies and dragonflies, caddisflies die out in polluted waters, and so are good bioindicators. Sometimes I think we will die out too, and soon, unheedful of the way the environment is twerking. That is, the way we are twerking the environment every day, social, political, physical. The dearth of rain here in the Northeast this summer is the death of grasses and crops, fish, deer, and caddisflies too, I would imagine. It all leads to us, but the us that is causing all this can't see the linkage. Probably everything we do, this makes me sad to admit, destroys something. This morning, in this time of serious change, invasion, pollution, drought, fire, flood, starvation, destruction, restriction, renaming, exclusion, I put aside my laughs the sander, a handful of rusted nails, the thread, and dump onto the bed a pile of earrings from which to make my version of a bejeweled tube without stealing or killing, deceiving a caddisfly or anything else, anyone else. The first hoops I ever bought from a small shop under the trestle at Nubian Square, the Turkish dangles, the diamond studs my friend left me when she died last year. I am paying attention to each piece, wondering what I may have put at risk, what I can live without, how to save, not offend, help, contribute, lift up, even if I must move on, dragging my home and my stuff along like the itinerant caddisfly until I sprout wings and fly, lifespan unknown. Thank you.
Thank you, Annaliese, and all three of you. When we were putting together this lineup, I knew that this pairing together, the three of you, would just bring such a fantastic set of work, and I think the past 45 minutes here have proven just how true that is. It's always so delightful just to hear your words. So we'll move into discussion in just a moment. But I know Claire and Annaliese, we were talking a little bit before we kicked off about these caddisflies. And so for those who are interested, we do have a photo, which I'll just share real quick, so you can just get a visualization of what this was. So I will bring this up in just a moment.
This is the art that the artist made by making the caddisflies make their little houses out of fragments of gold and gemstones, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's amazing.
So if you're interested, that is the visualization that we were talking about.
That's just amazing. It freaks me out. Those pictures actually have the flies in them, which freaks me out. I'm assuming he sells them flyless, right?
I believe so. I believe once they're gone, then he has a tube, and that becomes the work of art, and he moves along.
Oh my gosh, it's almost impossible for me to believe that. I remember you told me this some months ago, and I couldn't get over it. And I love the fact that you turned it into this wonderful piece. It's just overwhelming to me almost. So if we want to start chatting, we'll just lead right into my question for you, Annaliese, which is, do you say in the piece, that it's difficult, if not impossible, to make something, in particular something beautiful, without destroying something else? I mean, earlier in the piece, you actually say we don't have to. It's not absolutely necessary to destroy something to make something beautiful, but we often do. But then later in the piece, it's like you say, it makes me sad to say it, but we probably do destroy something every time we make something. And I feel like that's kind of where the piece is going. That's one of the takeaways from the piece, and you have to sort of be accepting of that. And what interests me about, everything interests me about it. But we've all thought about this before, that it's hard to make something beautiful without destroying something. But I had this notion that writing was immune from that somehow. And your piece made me think about the fact that it isn't, probably. And that's a new thought for me. So I'll have to think about what I think that means. But I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. What do we have to destroy to make something beautiful from words when we're writing? What do you think about that whole idea as it applies to writing?
Well, I will say that vision or feeling is new to me also. It's part of the articulation of it, and it's part of what the process of this essay was. So I'm still processing a lot of what that really means. But in terms of, and this is how, I talk about my literal mind, which I have a very analytical and literal mind. And I fight against it a lot in terms of, my work. But in terms of the where I went first with this is that literal piece of, the physicality, the tools, the paper, the pens, the pencils, the ink. I'm a relentless printer when I write. once I get something on screen, I'm printing it out. I got a version, I mark it up, I'm printing it out again. So I waste a lot of paper. I mean, when we talk about resources, and I'm a woman who's has been very conscious of resources all of my adult life. You couldn't live off the land like I did and not have had that ethic. But there's that shift. And then, you come to the tools like the typewriter before, now the computer. And so, the making of all of those things and that sense of our culture's desire for obsolescence, the building in of that. So even on that surface level, we have that. But there's also more than that in it. And as I said, I'm still processing this myself, just like you are, Claire. There's the life part too. I'm a rooter, as you can get from this essay. I put down roots in places, but also now, as a result of this piece, I'm sort of destroying a vision of my life or a vision of who I am in that sense of uprootedness. So there's that level of how you move through this. But there's always, when I enter a piece, I may not know it for a long time afterwards, but I'm busting through some kind of a wall to get to another place. So I'm destroying something, a preconceived notion of mine, whether it's about writing or the work I've made or how to combine in new ways. And so you're doing that. But I would say that most importantly, in terms of writing also, is that one of the words I used in there is, it's about suffering and destruction. And writers who are writing from a sort of deep creative place, as opposed to just from a deep creative place, they're writing about stuff. They're almost always writing about suffering. There's suffering somewhere. There's suffering in your piece. There's suffering in Jodi's piece. There's suffering in my piece. So there's that sense of the material we're using. The suffering has to exist in order for us to even make, or it sometimes feels that way to me now. That is not clear at all, but that's what I'm processing at the moment.
No, it was very clear. It's very clear. It's the same kinds of things I was thinking about. I was thinking about how we have to destroy a story to make a new story out of it. So Josh and I have been talking a lot lately about how even though we're writing fiction, we're working out our stuff in the fiction. And Jodi, you must experience this too. You must feel this. And so we're taking our personal stories and we're fragmenting them in a way and then building up other stories, fictionalized pieces that are made up of those little fragments. And that's a very satisfying thing to do, especially when you get to your vision, and you feel like you have completed a piece and you've done what you set out to do. But there is also some destruction that goes along with that. And that's sort of what your piece made me think about a little bit. I was like, yeah, but relationships change. Literally, you can change relationships in your life with people, relationships to the memories that you have. A memory that's always been a shiny object before, you finally break it open and get to that thing that makes a story that's been animating you for a while. You find maybe that dark layer in there, and that changes that story forever. And which means it changes you forever, and it changes your relationship maybe to some people forever. And it's just not all wonderful, happy, clappy stuff, even when it's very, the work is satisfying and you've created something and you're very grateful to do it, you feel privileged to do it. There's still some of that destruction going on. And I hadn't really thought about it in that way before I heard your piece. So I'll continue to process it, but I really appreciate that insight. It's terrific. I love that sort of meta aspect of what you were writing there. Thank you.
I will want to add one thing too, is like, even though, I'm writing nonfiction, or anybody when they're writing nonfiction or working from their regular lives, we don't know what we're going to find when we go in. Much like even a fiction writer is going in and you're not quite sure what you're going to find. We don't know what we're going to find either, or where the avenue is going to take us, or at least that's how I work. I don't know until I get there. So,
Yeah, that's right. You're figuring it out by writing it. You're not figuring it out and then writing it. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just add in, Ann Elliott on Facebook is just chiming in. She says she loves this whole conversation, but was also pointing out how sometimes writing can break through beliefs or change what we believe, especially if we had kind of false conceptions and then we understand them differently, which I think is in line with what we've been saying here.
Yeah, and again, that's not always a happy revelation. Sometimes it's an upsetting revelation. You know, something gets broken out of that, even though ultimately you may be glad it happened.
Yes.
It's a great point. Hi, Anne. Let's see. I do have a question for Jodi if we want to move on to something else. Did you want to talk a little bit about that, Jodi, first, or?
Well, just having heard that piece for the first time, my first thought was I really need to read that piece again and really think about, I mean, there's so many invitations in the piece to for us to think about, to engage with. And I happen to love caddisflies, which is a weird thing, but I just love them, and I've loved them since I was very small. And I used to teach kids, and we did river watch, and it's one of the creatures that actually indicates how healthy a stream is or isn't. But their actual natural structures are so absolutely gorgeous that I can't imagine someone wanting to mess with that. So but yeah, just like they're beautiful, and it's also heartbreaking. And I think that's what it boils down to, is for me, is that I love writing that's both incredibly beautiful and elevating, and also that breaks my heart. So those are my favorite kinds of writing, and both of your pieces today fit into that category. So I just wanted to say that too. Yeah.
Thank you. And now when we're done, I'm gonna Google caddisflies to see what the real thing looks like. I'm so glad you added that, because I didn't even think about that. I was so beguiled by I'm kind of horrified actually by what this guy is doing, but I'm also beguiled by it because who thinks of that? And you know, and he hasn't, but he has facilitated the process of making something extraordinary that would not exist if he didn't have this freakish idea. Anyway, I think you capture that well too, Annaliese, that it is disturbing too. I mean, that this idea is actually really creepy in a way when you start thinking about it. But anyway, thanks for adding that, Jodi. Now I'm going to look at the real thing too, which is only fair to the caddisfly, which I'm ashamed to say had never heard of before Annaliese told me about them. Jodi, I think I've said this to you before about how much I enjoy the way you let setting and place influence your work. And I mean, you know, it's not like you had, 100 references to place in the piece that you read, and yet it just feels permeated by it. And I love that. My pieces are never like that. My pieces can just take place anywhere. And so I have to read like your work or Elizabeth Strout's work or Monica Wood's work to remember that kind of texture that can be added to a piece. And so I just hoped that maybe you would treat us with a little bit of your thinking about how you approach your work with that in mind, or is it something that just comes so naturally to you? I want to just talk about that a little bit. That would be great.
Yeah. Yes, I'm very taken with place in my life. So in my life, I have always loved being outside in the natural world. And I've always been very interested in like the townspeople, the community of a place, or the way that the main streets kind of set up, or it's just something that I do resonate with in my own life and always had. And I loved going outside and playing my whole life in nature. And then when I came home from college, our landscape had changed. It had changed and become developed. And so I headed from Pennsylvania to New England looking for that natural world again. And so I was always looking for the place that would have the things that I really cared about and love, which was like a lot of natural space and a community that was close knit, that had interesting people and characters, that had, that did interesting jobs. So I think it all like informs like not just the landscape, but also the cultural aspects of place too. I don't know that I've ever really thought about it that much when I sit down to write. Like I just do it, I just tends to be a part of the work. And then because I tend to like linking stories, they tend to, take place in the same town. And in this collection I'm working on now, I kind of gave myself the challenge of having one of my characters leave town so that I would sort of need to write a story that happened outside of the town. And so she leaves, she's a minor character in one story, and she leaves and goes to Florida. And then I happen to go there for a short vacation just right before the lockdown. So I do like to write about the place where I am. Like it's hard for me to write a story like set in Italy or something if I'm not in Italy, or, that kind of a thing. It's just always been a part of my life, and I think it just can't help but come through. And in this particular story, I think there's less place than some of my others, but later on in the story, we get a little bit more of that housing community. We get a little bit more of, we go to the funeral. There's other things that happen that bring more of the town and place into the piece. And also, I just wanted to add, I really was thinking about the theme and thinking about like artifice and, like disguise, and how I was really thinking about something that happens later where we find out something about Marina. And I wasn't even thinking that in the first few pages of this story, she's like pretending, like she's trying to pretend that she's, using alcohol when she's not. And then she's pretending that one brother's the other. And I hadn't even realized that. I was like, oh, we're not even going to really get to the part where there's the big pretend, and so anyway, that
actually makes me so happy, Jodi, because when I read your piece, those things jumped out at me. I was like, oh, that's why she picked it. That's great. That's what a great use of the theme. It makes me so happy that our themes can work that way, can find these fun connections. It makes such sense to me that you don't actually think so much about it when you're situating everything in your stories, because I think it's the magic of your work, because what you said was that you've always resonated with, where you are. And I think it's that resonance that shows up in your pages and makes it so lovely. Yeah. Thanks for talking about that.
We are coming up right on time. These events always go so quickly, and I know we can just sit and talk about writing for hours.
Yes, we could.
But before I wrap up, Jodi or Annaliese, any final thoughts that you want to say?
Well, I would just like to say that I just love being in Jodi's world and in Claire's world. And they're so dramatically different. They're dramatically different for their people, for their language, for their pacing, for all of that. But they're so powerful. So I'm very happy to be here with both of you.
Well, thank you. And right back at you, Annaliese.
Yeah, and I just want to thank, you again, because this is such an amazing series. And I spoke to Claire a long time about it when she was just getting it started. And she had this vision. And then I met Josh and got to read in person a couple times in Lewiston and go to some readings and meet new writers. And what you're really doing here is building a community and of writers and readers. And it's just so lovely. And I've made friends in this group along the way. And so it's just always such a pleasure. Thank you so much for including me today. I'm just so honored.
Well, thank you. And thank you for coming in. And as Josh said in the beginning, it's our privilege to do it. And I mean, that's our mission, is to build community. And we're just so fortunate to be in Maine with all these wonderful writers. We've made friends too, and we're so happy about it. So thank you. That's really kind of you to say. It makes me very happy. And I know it makes Josh happy too.
Yes,
Not that Josh can't speak for himself. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I know when Claire and I first came up with this idea, that it was exactly that, bringing people together just to celebrate the work and to connect. So yeah, it's wonderful that that has been the effect of all of this. Because I know we have fun doing it, but to have so many other writers engage as fully as you both have, and everyone else that has been part of the series, is very just meaningful.
Yeah, and we do look forward to getting back together in person as soon as, you know, the situation allows. Thank goodness for Zoom to get us through the pandemic, though, and that's been great.
Yes. So yes, that brings us to a close tonight. Jodi and Annaliese, again, thank you for sharing your work with us. Thank you to everyone who tuned in as well. As I said, this entire event will be up on Facebook, along with our other virtual events, and they will be on YouTube and on our website before too long. So share the word, especially if you know someone who would appreciate tuning in just to listen to these readings. We love sharing the work. We love getting the word out there. So tune in next month. We'll be back with another set of fantastic readers with a brand new theme. And also tune in next week on Friday for LA Arts. Local Writers Read is partnering as part of their virtual art walk again. We have a video spotlight with Jefferson Nowicki, who is a local poet and a friend of this series, reading some of his delightful work, along with a bunch of other Lewiston Auburn creators, makers, singers, artists. They're doing some very good work there as well, so definitely tune in. But we will be back. Connect with us on Facebook for updates, and we look forward to seeing everyone again next time around. Until then, enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.